My Uncle Henry and his wife Peggy have a ranch out in Montana that is huge. They have cattle and horses scattered throughout the property. They also have a lot of wildlife that frequent the ranch. Moose, elk, bighorn sheep, bison, wolverines, coyotes, wolves, and grizzly bears, which is also the state animal. I would sometimes go riding the fence with him to check on the livestock. Finding a cow or horse mauled to death in the field was a fairly common and horrific experience. They would have huge claw marks ripping open their throats and their stomachs cut wide open with some uneaten guts on the ground. It was sad and, well, gross. Most of the time, we would just look for birds circling the sky and check under them for a carcass. That's life on the ranch. But then, one time, things were different. I got a call from Henry to come out and see what I thought of the horse's remains he found. I was studying veterinary medicine at the time, so I went to check it out. After I got there, we saddled up, mounted our horses, and started riding into the field. After about an hour of riding, we come up on a down horse. It looked to have been dead for hours. Flies were gathered up on it everywhere. There was no sign of the usual scavengers, buzzards, crows, coyotes. I got off my horse and stooped down for a better look. It was an eerie scene. It looked like a huge deflated plush toy. Its coat was still very shiny and draped over its skeleton. That's kind of gross. I don't understand how that would work, but yeah. A plush toy. I'm never going to look at plush toys the same. It was a purebred American quarter horse, worth thousands of dollars. Pretty expensive. According to Henry, the horse was only 5 years old. Their lifespan is 25 to 30 years, so it didn't die of old age. Let's see, 30 years, humans about 80, so about 3 times. So it's about a 15-year-old human, about basically. All of his blood had been drained, but there was none on the ground. Most of his internal organs were missing. His genitals and tongue were also removed. There's a joke there, but I'm not going to say it. I say removed because that's the best way to describe it. They were removed with a surgical precision I've never seen before. The body was sunk into the ground a little, like the 1,200-pound animal was dropped very hard. I couldn't find a cause of death other than blood loss and missing organs, which isn't really a cause of death. Henry asked me to stay with him for a few days to keep an eye on the herd. I said sure. A few days later, and nothing had happened. One morning, I went hunting with him. We were big game hunting. Elk, deer, and bighorn sheep. We spotted an elk lying down beside the trail, which is unusual. We snuck closer and discovered it was dead. It looked the same as the horse before. No blood and organs missing. No blood anywhere around it on the ground. And the ground was sunk in around it. Genitals, tongue, and eyes were missing. Everything was removed with extreme skill. There were no tracks in the soft ground around the elk, and not even from the elk itself. Well, that's fucked up. It was getting very weird. A few more days passed, and one day, Henry was calling his dog in to eat. He usually only has to call once, and Fritz would come running, barking all the way. This time, though, he called several times. Fritz didn't come. Man, leave the dog out of it. What do you want to bet Fritz is a German Shepherd? Worried about him, we took off to look for Fritz. We searched all his usual hangouts, but couldn't find him. I heard a coyote in the distance. We decided to check in that direction, in case he was, facing off with a predator. It was almost dark, and I saw what looked like an animal laying on the ground in front of me. We rushed over and saw it was Fritz, dead. He had the same post-mortem issues. What the hell is going on? Henry and I both started to worry. Somebody or something is killing his animals. I'm going to go out on a limb and say something. In his paranoia, Henry installed 15 game cameras around the ranch. There we go. One way or the other, we're going to find out what is happening. The next day, Oscar, his cat, went missing. Oscar was an inside cat and rarely went outside. Again, we searched all of Oscar's usual stomping grounds, but nothing. Henry checked the game cameras, and one of them captured a picture of Oscar sneaking around that night. I thought he was an inside cat. We started searching in the area of that camera, which is outside. After a few minutes, we found Oscar dead. Only Oscar was lying across 2 branches in a tree about 30 feet in the air. It was a flying cat. After an hour of trying to get Oscar down, we finally succeeded. He had the same thing going on. No blood, organs missing, exactness of surgical cuts. Henry thought it might be a cult doing animal sacrifices. I didn't think that was the case and decided to take some tissue samples to the lab for analysis. When I returned, I shared my strange findings with Henry. The samples were completely devoid of copper and contained 4 times the normal level of zinc, potassium, and phosphorus. That's plant fertilizer. The scientists were perplexed at these anomalies. Blood samples from Oscar were light pink in color. The cat's hide was unusually brittle for only being dead a few hours. Pussy pork rinds. And the flesh underneath it was extremely discolored. His body had a strong smell of chemicals, like fertilizer. That was my take there. There was no firm conclusion from the lab on the cause of the blood loss or tissue damage. Fast forward 3 days. Henry came bursting into my room one morning, frantic. "Peggy's missing," he said. Still groggy from just waking up, I said, "Where'd she go?" "I don't know. I need you to help me go find her." I threw on my clothes and shoes and stumbled into the living room. We thoroughly searched the house. Nothing. When I sat down on the couch, Henry threw me a rifle. "Let's go, now!" he shouted. We got up on our horses and galloped away. We checked the game cameras. After the 12th one, it showed a picture of Peggy stumbling through the brush. "What the hell is she doing out there?" Henry whispered. I assumed it was a rhetorical question because I didn't have an answer. We decided to split up to cover more ground. I know, not the best idea, but hey, we were freaking out. Yeah. After a few hours, it started getting dark. We met back at the game camera. Neither of us had found anything. No clothes, no tracks, no sign of someone walking through the brush. So we headed back to the house. Henry called the police to report Peggy missing. They said they couldn't do anything until she was missing for 24 hours. Furious, he threw the phone against the wall, and it shattered into a million pieces. He went into the kitchen and returned with a huge bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. Now we're talking. We sat down and drank in silence for hours. We were nearly unconscious when, at about 1 a.m., we heard a loud thud outside. We both stumbled to the door and tried to open it at the same time. That'd be pretty funny to see. Henry grabbed a portable floodlight on the porch and started scanning around. There she is, he said. She was laying face down on the ground about 20 yards away. Man, this shit's getting personal now. We scrambled to her. He rolled her over and she was dead. Her body was drained of blood. She looked like a skin-covered skeleton, like Nicole Richie. Her eyes missing. She had a small cut on her stomach that looked like from a scalpel. Henry lost it. He was already pretty drunk, and now he's completely irrational. He said, "Come on, let's go find this motherfucker and fuck him up." Fuck yeah, it's time to send somebody to hell, I spoke up. Because that's the best thing to do when you've been drinking, is to go shoot some guns. Guns and alcohol don't mix, kids. Don't try it. It's got to be one or the other. We went back inside, put on some camo, loaded the rifles and 2 pistols, grabbed an extra box of shells each, and saddled up in the dark. His rifle had a night vision scope. Mine was a regular scope, but he let me borrow a pair of night vision binoculars. We started checking the game cameras. The first few turned up nothing. When we got to the one that got a picture of Peggy earlier, it showed something strange. A small, human-like creature about 3 to 4 feet tall with a huge head. Mongoloid? It walked around in front of the camera, then looked directly at the camera. It had huge almond-shaped black eyes. That was the last picture. We scanned the area, looking for anything to move. We didn't see anything. Suddenly, we heard movement in the leaves, not far away. We both took aim in that direction and waited. I heard Henry mumble, "Smile, you son of a bitch," and his rifle thundered to life. He shouted, "Follow me! I hit him!" We raced through the woods, still feeling the effects of the booze. When we got to the point of contact, we spotted its blood trail. It was fluorescent green. Like Mr. Spock? It was leading to a large lit-up area of the woods. Yeah, now see, that's the first kind of blood trail that would be really cool to see at night because you'd be able to see it with those little purple light things. That would be trippy. I wonder if they use their blood for glow sticks. Oh, never mind. As we got closer, I noticed something in a clearing. It looked like a saucer-shaped UFO. Aliens! Aliens! I drew a bead on it through my scope and fired several shots. Henry spotted it also and joined me in the barrage. It started to smoke and made some strange noise. Then it teetered into the air about 20 feet and shot off into the distance. We went back to following the blood trail. Just a few feet from where the UFO was sitting was the body of an alien. It was shot in the chest and green blood was all around it. It was what is known as a gray, and it was still alive. Henry pulled out his pistol and unloaded it on the alien's torso. He grabbed it by its feet and threw it over his shoulder, and we went back to his house like a sack of taters. The next day, when I woke up, Henry was already awake and making breakfast. Oh man. Now, I grabbed some coffee. I was still a little hungover and asked what he did with the alien. "Oh, come here, I'll show you," Henry replied. He walked me into another room. Mounted on the wall between a bison head and a 16-point buck was the alien head. Oh, I forgot to mention, Henry does taxidermy as a hobby.